Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Michael Jansen. If you don't know me, I'm Economic Development Specialist for the town of Sahuarita. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us today. Thank you to those that joined us last week. And maybe we have some new people on today. So on behalf of the mayor of our town, Tom Murphy, our town manager, Kelly Udall, and our town council, thank you very much. We're here to support you and show our support. I know last week we talked a lot about the Paycheck Protection Program, which is now going. Some of you may be in that, waiting or kind of in a holding pattern. So today we're talking about staying more mentally sharp with our esteemed guest. Just as a note, you can submit questions via chat or the Q&A. I think we've found that maybe chat is a little easier to navigate, but you can also do Q&A if that's what you prefer. So thank you again for joining us today. I'm going to hand it over to Doug Christie, who is representing the Green Valley Sahuarita Chamber of Commerce, and also his business, Provision Coaching, which is a business coaching firm. Thank you to Doug, and take it away.
Thank you, Michael. I'm a business coach by profession, and like many of you on this call or who will be listening to the recording of this call, small business owner. As Michael said, I own Provision Coaching. It's a local firm here in Green Valley, Sahuarita. And I've also been working very closely with Michael and his boss, Victor Gonzalez at the town, and along with Randy Graff, the CEO of the Green Valley Sahuarita Chamber of Commerce. And we've put together a business retention and expansion program through the chamber, which we call GVS Leads. We were just about launching that program. We were launching that program when the virus hit. And just like a lot of folks, Randy's team and Victor's team pivoted, and our focus now has been on helping the small businesses thrive before they survive, basically, before they thrive. Sherry, you can put up the slide, please.
Okay, it's coming.
So many of us have stepped up, like the town of Sahuarita, offering webinars to our small businesses to get through this time. And most of the webinars, a lot of the webinars have really had a financial survival theme, which is extremely important during this time also. But few, if any, are addressing the mental or emotional survival aspect. You know, we all understand if we don't come out of this crisis mentally strong and sound, then our personal lives and our business lives could be in for a severe aftershock. So my firm has operated in 5 states. The last state I operated in was in Pennsylvania before I moved to Arizona, and that's where I met Dr. Sherry Kane, and we affectionately called her Dr. Sherry back in Pennsylvania. And we quickly formed a professional partnership, collaboration, and we started coaching business clients together. And even though I, as a business coach, can fix a P&L, Dr. Sherry realized that if the owner was emotionally broken, it really did little for anyone, any help. So, you know, that's what this webinar is about. It's about getting tips from Dr. Sherry on how to cope with this virus, with this curve we're in, and how to come out emotionally healthy. So, Dr. Sherry, if you can put up the next slide, I'll introduce you.
Sure.
Dr. Sherry has vast experience in stress management and counseling, and that sounds pretty useful today, doesn't it, to most of us on here. She's also led therapy groups in a maximum security prison, and if that's not enough, she's a performance enhancement consultant for the Philadelphia Eagles. She also sits on the executive committee of her local economic development board, so she understands the plight of small businesses and the need to have a healthy small business community. She has an extensive teaching background. She is a much sought after keynote speaker, mom of 3, and a great sense of humor. So I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Sherry, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about herself and her background. Dr. Sherry?
Hey, thank you, Doug. Hello to everyone out there. I'm glad you've all joined on. I've been a therapist, counselor, psychologist, as it says, for 30 years. And in 30 years, I've worked in a lot of different settings. I've worked in settings from Head Start preschool up through the college level Penn State Counseling Center. I've worked in local mental health agencies, inpatient and outpatient drug and alcohol, inpatient psychiatric hospitals. I've worked in, as Doug mentioned, maximum security prisons. I work for the Philadelphia Eagles. So, you know, some are you saying, why did they put this woman on? She can't hold a job. It's not that. I've worked in all of these settings because to me, human beings, we are the most interesting creatures there are. And I love my job and I love my work. I've worked with probably thousands of people over 30 years. I'd say my youngest patient has been 4. My oldest one is 87 currently. And so in that wide variety of settings, I've probably worked with every problem you can think of. That now, one of my specialties is in stress management, and certainly in 30 years, I've seen a lot of stress across a lot of different settings, but this time in our lives is unprecedented. We are all called on and experiencing something we've never experienced before. So when they asked me to do this, I was really glad because I'm seeing everyone that I'm currently working with experiencing a lot of different feelings. A whole range of emotions. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anxiety. There's grief. People are experiencing emotions that they have never had to deal with related to fears about their business. And, you know, business owners, especially, you know, feeling isolated and fears about not only their business, but their family, their own health. There are waves of feelings that we're all experiencing. So I'm going to go through some slides, and certainly I can't see you. Doug and Michael are monitoring questions. I'd like the opportunity to be there, that you know that your questions are going to get answered. So at the end, we're going to allow time to answer those, but they're also going to be monitoring them the whole way through. So if there's something you want to ask, go ahead and put it up there as you think about it. And if there's something that fits, that it's a good time to stop, they will interrupt me and we will take care of that. And then at the end, my information will be up there. So if you don't feel like your question was adequately answered, my email is going to be on there and my phone number, and you can certainly feel free to contact me at any time. So I'm going to go through and present this presentation and talk about some things as we go. But the first slide that you're going to see, if we look at just some signs of stress, I mean, if you look down through there, I'm not going to read those to you, but you can look down through all, and this is just a short list. I mean, I have a page in my office that's got 4 more columns to different signs of stress that we can be experiencing. You know, and all you have to do, if you look on Facebook or you look on any of the memes, there's a lot of memes out there about people experiencing stress. I told Doug yesterday, one of them said, when this is over, I don't know if I'm gonna have to go to AA or Weight Watchers, is one I saw the other day. And that's a funny thing in one sense. They're putting it up as something funny, but we know that people, unless people work at this, they have run the danger of coming out not okay on the other side of this. So we have to fight for our mental health during this crisis. And as you look down through there, chronic fatigue, not sleeping at night, having physical symptoms, chest pain, stomach, having all sorts of emotional symptoms, knowing that you're more irritable. I mean, people were all crammed together in our house, maybe 24/7 for the first time that we remember, where we can't get out, we can't go places. So just know that this is certainly not an all-inclusive list, but what I hope to do today is to help to give you some things to think about and some tips to help manage all of these emotions. So one of the things, this next slide that you're going to see, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is sort of a staple of psychology in terms of understanding human beings. My daughters asked me the other day, they said, Mom, do you like your job? And I said, I love my job. They said, you like to listen to people's problems all day? I said, absolutely, because when I listen to people's problems, I have the opportunity to help them. Because what I know about every one of you watching this webinar is that no matter what is going on with you, you have the potential, the capacity, and the ability to change. Like some people will say, oh, well, I can't change, or this is just the way I am. And that's absolutely not true. If there are things that we need to change, it might just be that you haven't been given the tools yet to change. So all of us have an inner wisdom. Sometimes we don't always listen to it, but you can have somebody help you, one, listen to it, and two, get the tools for change. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But as you look at this hierarchy of needs, at the bottom, now there are some people that live in other countries that their whole lives have been about meeting just the basic bottom needs. It's been about meeting safety and security needs. People that live in countries where they don't have adequate housing, their actual safety from predators, animals, they have to worry about. They don't have enough food, they're starving. Now, as you move up that hierarchy, most of us in our country, thankfully, have not had to live in basic physiological needs or basic safety needs, although some have. We've moved up into more love of belonging needs, self-esteem needs, and what they call finally self-actualization needs. When we're moving up through more of these needs at the top of the pyramid, that's where we're functioning in our businesses, we're functioning in our work lives, we're functioning in our relationships. And what's happened in this is our world has been brought to its knees, and we've landed on the bottom of having to meet our most basic safety and security needs. I mean, if you look at what France just indicated, they don't want people even going out of the house to exercise, so somebody can't even step outside there. We are worried and covering with masks to try to protect our lives when we go to the grocery store. So we've had a screeching halt at meeting all these other needs, and we've had to start with the most basic. But what I want us to focus on is that even in the midst of this, like in the midst of this crisis where you might be having a lot of fear or anxiety, we are amazing beings. If you notice that first slide that was up there, it was a plant growing through concrete, and I like to think of us this way, that human beings are very hard to put down. Now sometimes we do things, or we sabotage ourselves and make it difficult because of choices we make. If we drink, or if we drug, or if we do some things with coping that make it hard. But most of the time, just like a piece of grass wants to go through concrete, human beings want to thrive and survive. And again, sometimes it's just we don't have the tools. One of the things that made me realize that, when my very first job as a counselor, I worked with a counselor who, her husband drove a dump truck, and they had a 2-year-old child, and they were saying goodbye at the door, and they didn't know the child got out and got behind the dump truck, and sadly the husband ran over the child and killed the child. At that point I thought, how does a human being recover from that? How does somebody recover from the loss of a child? And watching that woman, and watching subsequently 30 years of people deal with all sorts of tragedies, what I've grown, I loved, and what I've grown to appreciate is the resilience of human beings. We are resilient creatures, and given the right tools, we can get through anything. So what this next slide, if you have ever heard of this before, I put this up, the term kintsukuroi. This is a term for Japanese pottery. And the reason I have that pot up there is because in Japan, the most valuable pottery is pottery that has been broken and is repaired with gold. And they consider it more valuable and the most beautiful. And I have a cup that in my office, because that's the way I consider human beings, that even when we're broken by something, when we meet the challenges that presents and we grow from that, that we're stronger. Ernest Hemingway said one of my favorite quotes. He said, "The world breaks everyone. And after the break, some grow strong at the broken parts." And that's what I want for all of us, for everybody watching this webinar, for everybody in the world with this break that has happened in our society with this virus, is that we can grow strong at those broken places. We can grow strong through this. So I use this slide a lot. I use it in a lot of different trainings, and I thought, am I going to put that up there? And I left it because I ask this question a lot. What kind of player are you? If you look at this slide, you can see that it's football. Okay, so what kind of teams play football on Friday night? You know, everybody's got their mics muted, but Doug and Michael, they probably know Friday night players, right? Friday night players are high school teams, right? So what kind of teams play on Saturday? College teams play on Saturday, right? What kind of teams play on Sunday? Sunday players are the NFL. They're the top 1% of athletes, okay? So I often ask that question to people. What kind of player are you in life? Okay, what kind of player are you in life? Are you a Friday night player, a Saturday night player, or a Sunday player? And what a Sunday player means is somebody that has courage, because it takes courage to be in that top 1% of whatever your field is. It takes courage, and you have to put in the time and the work and the practice. So to be a Sunday player in life, right now is when we all need to be Sunday players. We all need to be showing up strong. We all need to be putting in the time, work, and practice to staying mentally strong and healthy. Because this is a drain on all of us. I had a client yesterday, and the mom we were on Skype, and she said, "I'm home with my 4 kids constantly. I've never been home with 4 kids under the age of 12. I'm losing my mind." And she said, "Do you know what I did today?" She said, "I have 4 tattoos and they're not filled in." She said, "And my kids are always wanting to color them." She said, "Just so my children would be still and quiet, I gave them permanent markers and I let them sit and color in on my tattoos." And she said, "I'm going to ask the teacher if this counts as art class." And I thought, beautiful. You're coping. Your teacher probably would count that as art class because she's probably stuck home with her 4 kids too. Yep, that counts as art class. So the Sunday players are the ones that we're going to put in the time, work, and practice to use our skills to stay mentally strong in this. Okay, so if you look at this slide, it is absolutely what I said. It is in the power of the mind to be unconquerable. There is nothing we cannot recover from. And I do a whole day's seminar on teaching people about the power of the mind. What's really exciting to me is 30 years ago, I learned cognitive therapy, and there were no brain scans that we could watch happen what I believed then was happening. So I believe that our thoughts change our behavior. There was no way to see that on brain scans. Now, 30 years later, there are. And so I'm really passionate about the things I teach. And now I can watch them be proven with brain science. So I often carry, you'll see I have a brain here. I try to carry my brain with me all the time. Most of the time I have this one too. But the thing about the power of the brain is what we put into our mind. There are 70,000 plus sentences that we can run through our mind in a given day. That when I often say to people, I want you to start thinking of yourself as a gatekeeper. I want you to start thinking of yourself as a gatekeeper to your mind. Because I'm gonna today I can't give you all these skills in 45 minutes, 40 minutes, but I'm gonna tell you about 2 words today that I promise you, if you and I, if I was in the room with you right now and we knew each other, and I said I'm gonna come back to you in 6 months, and if you have done these 2 things that I tell you, and we're able to do a blood draw and we measure your vitals, that you would be in better physical shape, just from the power of changing 2 words. So I'll tell you what those are a little bit in the presentation. But if you look at this, the power of your amazing brain, like I said, you have 70,000 thoughts that run through your head a day. Before coronavirus, what were those 70,000 thoughts? And now with coronavirus, what are those 70,000 thoughts? I imagine there's 70,000 you had before, worrying about your business, worrying about your family, worrying about your health. And now we have 70,000, I'd say we probably have doubled it, 140,000 thoughts a day. Some of my clients are falling asleep at night, if they even can fall asleep, falling asleep at night worried about this, waking up in the morning first thing worried about this. And so it's really important for us to start taking a look at how those thoughts affect you, because they affect you in a much more impactful way than most of us ever even realize. Okay, so if you look at this sentence, the mind is powerful. Okay, so some of you unfortunately may be phobic of snakes, and I've just put a slide up there of a snake. So I apologize if you're snake phobic, and I'll get that slide off there in a minute. But when you see that snake, I mean, raise your hand if you don't like snakes. Okay, I imagine a large percentage of you don't like snakes, right? Okay, now you see that pretty little bow on the snake's head? Like, most of us like presents, right? I probably, if I said, how many of you like presents? Like, there's probably not too many people that would go, I detest presents. I hate presents. Most of us like presents, and bows remind us of presents, right? Oh, a present. But when I put that bow on that snake's head, did that make you like that snake any better if you don't like snakes? That bow probably, if you don't want to hold that snake to begin with, that bow probably didn't make you want to hold that snake, right? So the mind is powerful. The mind often overrides things that we feel or think. The mind is powerful. How quickly does the mind cause our feelings to change? Let me give you an example. Now it's maybe harder to see, but you'll get what I'm thinking. Okay, if you see this is a pile of leaves, okay? This is a pile of leaves, and pretend you're walking through the woods. You're walking through the woods, you've got the pile of leaves, and then all of a sudden you step into the leaves and you see this shape in the leaves. Sort of like a snake shape. It's hard to see, I know here, but your first thought, if you think it's a snake, is what? You think, oh my gosh, that's a snake, and you feel afraid, right? Unless you're like whatever they call a snake person that loves snakes. Unless you're that, you feel afraid. But what happens the second you go, oh, it's a stick? Immediately, your fear is gone, right? Immediately, pretty immediately. That's how quick it changes. Well, lots of us are running sentences through our mind that are anxiety producing, they're fear producing, and if we can learn how to change those sentences in our mind and how to be a gatekeeper of our mind, then it changes our behavior, it changes our bodily reactions. So again, I have this brain with me. I talk to people a lot about what they put in their brains. You'll see this brain opens up. And people at trainings often laugh because you probably can't see on here, but this is fake dog doo-doo. Like, so it's fake dog doo-doo. And a lot of us walk around with crap in our brains, right? We run crappy sentences through our brain that produce crappy sentences, produce crappy feelings, that produce crappy behavior. So this is an introduction to talking to you about the power of your mind there are absolutely tools you can use that will help you stay in control of your mind to weather this storm. These are choppy waters. So if you look at this question, how do people change? The first counseling course I ever walked into, my professor walked in, he said, we'd never seen him before, never met him. He said, pull out a piece of paper. We took out a piece of paper. He said, now write this down in really big letters on the whole paper. People don't change easily. He said, now remember that for the rest of your career and keep that paper on your desk for the rest of your career. And that is true. We are creatures. You listening to me, you are a creature of habit. People don't like change. It's difficult for people. In fact, evolutionarily, you are wired to even be a little more negative. Do you know why that is? Well, let's go back to this, where you're walking through the woods. You're walking through the woods, and let's say it's a forest, and you hear a crunching, a sound as if there's something in the forest beside you. Which sentence serves you better in that scenario? You're going through the forest, you hear something crunch. Does it serve you better to go, oh, what was that? I should be cautious. Or does it serve you better to go, oh, la, 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 it's probably just a soft bunny, nothing to worry about, just a soft bunny. Evolutionarily, for the caveman, didn't it serve him better to say, what is that? Let me be cautious. Let me check that out. In that scenario, it serves us better. We're wired for the negative. Let me pay attention to that. Let me check that out. Let me be on high alert, apprehensive. So that serves us well evolutionarily, but it does not serve us well mentally now to think more negatively, right? I mean, that's why there's all sorts of books out there on positive thinking, and there was a positive thinking movement. Now, I'll talk about it a little differently with people. I don't talk about positive thinking because there are many things that you cannot think positive about. My coworker who lost their child, they can't think positively about that. Somebody who lost their job, they can't think positively about that. Who's going to think positively about what's happening to our world right now? But what makes us mentally healthy and mentally able to withstand the storm is thinking rationally. And so that's one of the tools. So when you look at this slide, okay, coming back to where our professor said, how do people change, or people don't change easily? Well, I propose to you that even though they don't change easily, every one of you has the capacity to change. And then we ask that question, how do people change? A few months ago, I was teaching probably 75 therapists who didn't know cognitive therapy, and asked them that question, how do people change? And it's hard for people to answer if you don't understand the brain science of our thoughts and how to change our thoughts. So the answer to how people change is there's two answers. People need an emotionally compelling reason to change, and people need tools for change. Because most of the time, our inner wisdom, even if it's sort of subconscious or you're in denial or unaware, your inner wisdom knows what you need and knows what you should be doing. For example, if I asked you all right now, raise your hand, which maybe is a click button where you raise your hand on the screen there. Raise your hand if you think that you should eat nutritious food, get enough sleep, drink a lot of water, and exercise at least 5-6 days a week. Press your little button, raise your hand if you think that you should be doing that. If I have a live audience in front of me, most people raise their hands that they should be doing that. Now let me ask you the second question. How many of you are doing that? Raise your hand if every day you are eating nutritious food, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, and exercising 5 times a week. I don't know if you're clicking, maybe Doug and Michael are seeing that all of you are clicking that you do it, or maybe thumbs down that you don't do it. The question is, why don't we do it? Like, why don't you do it? You know you should be doing all those things. Well, that speaks to number one. Often we don't have an emotionally compelling reason for it. And I'll give you an example of what that means. Let's say like me, you struggle either at Walmart in the cookie aisle, because I have a lot of struggles in the cookie aisle. In fact, I think they had me on camera once thinking that I was shoplifting, because I would grab the Oreos and put them in my cart, and then I would go and I'd talk myself out of them and I'd put them back. And like, it took me 4 times before I finally left them on the shelf to not take the Oreos. Or maybe at the donut shop where, or not the donut shop, the sheets here, I don't know what they are out there, gas stations that sell donuts, and they sell them beside the bananas. And then I stand there, it takes me a really long time to go to that store, because I stare and have a big mental struggle, the donut versus the banana. And then I think through the donut, and I usually leave with the banana. But it's because the emotionally compelling reason, often somebody will choose the donut until there's a heart attack, right? And so they know they shouldn't be eating a lot of donuts, but not until they have a heart attack or they have diabetes and the doctor says, you can never do that again, eat that donut. That becomes the emotionally compelling reason. So now you got a reason you want to change. Then you need the tools for change. So a lot of us are getting very emotionally compelling reasons right now to try to do something different. We're how many weeks into this stay-at-home order? Like, some of us started out fun and we were playing family games and we were doing things together, and then now you're just getting on each other's nerves, and now you're just wanting to run out of the house, and now people are irritable and snipping at each other and biting each other's heads off. And so there are becoming emotionally compelling reasons to look for tools to stay mentally healthy. People are starting to, because what happens is we think there'll be an end to this, and then as it's prolonged and we wonder, will there be an end? And is it 2 more months out or 3 more months out? We sort of run out of steam on thinking we're just going to soldier through, and then we start, people, at least I'm finding in my practice, people are starting to experience more grief, they're starting to feel more anxious, more depressed. And so then this is the time where we need the tools, number 2, to soldier on through. Okay? So if we look at choices and consequences, every day we're presented with choices and consequences, right? Every choice you make has a consequence. It's, you know, when you got up this morning, before you even had 2 hours in your day, once you were awake, you had made many choices. Some of you chose to brush your teeth and not brush your teeth. Some of you chose to have breakfast or not have breakfast. Some of you chose a good healthy breakfast versus a donut. Some of you chose to exercise and not exercise. Some of you chose to kiss your spouse hello. Some of you chose to yell at your spouse. Whatever your choice was, there were consequences to that. And that right now is more important than ever, because you are given a clean slate the very next second. Like the second that I finish saying second, you've got a clean slate to make the next right choice. If right before you got on this webinar, you yelled at the person you love because they were on your nerves, you have a choice to either hold that grudge and click off and yell at them again, or you have a choice to think, I'm going to focus on this relationship and work on improving that, and click off and say you're sorry, right? Every choice produces a consequence. And at the end of our day, if you had a crappy day, it's because you made a lot of crappy choices. Now I'm not saying that something can't happen to you to make your day like that the woman I work with, she didn't make a lot of crappy choices that resulted. There are things like that happen. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the things we can choose all day. And then at the end of our life, our choices, if we say I had a crappy life, a lot of that was crappy choices, right? So just thinking about the choices you can make, I'm going to try to get to those, and I know I want to leave time for questions. So I'm going to try to flip through some of these pretty quickly, but some of you might know have heard this quote before. If you don't take the time to be healthy, then if anybody knows the rest of that quote, you can type it in there for Doug or Michael to see. But if you don't take the time to be healthy, because a lot of my clients, when I say things to them like, are you exercising? What's the number one answer people give for not exercising? I don't have the time, right? I don't have time. I can't get up at 5:30, and I'm already getting up at 5:30. I can't get up at 4:30 and exercise, or I'm too tired at the end of the day, or I'm too. But again, when that emotionally compelling reason happens, the heart attack, then you find time. Because I often say to my clients, if your doctor said you have cancer, you have to go to chemo, you wouldn't go, sorry, don't really have the time to go to chemo. You would go to chemo, right? So the rest of that quote, if you don't take the time to be healthy, then you will take the time to be sick. That's what that means. Like if you don't on the front end take the time to be healthy, when they tell you you have to go to chemo or you need a triple bypass, you will take the time for that. So why not let's all like clean slate April 9th, I think today's the 9th, April 9th, 2020, clean slate that we work on taking the time to be healthy, mentally healthy, physically healthy, because this quote is true. Your mind does affect your body for better or for worse. You know, loving emotions are associated with healing. As you can see here, anger, hostility, cynicism, they are toxic to the heart. Fear dumps stress hormones in your system. And I like this last quote, disease begins in the psychological, spiritual, and emotional dimensions long before it manifests in the physical, but eventually does manifest in the physical. And so again, that mind, just another example of how strong the mind is in terms of overriding things. There's a researcher that studies the pain response. And he was a researcher for pain before this happened to him, but he's from Australia. And he was out walking in the Australian outback with some friends, and he was walking along, and he felt like a briar jag him on the leg. And he's like, ow, you know, that hurt. And he's like, pain receptor, it traveled up and it went to the brain, and the brain said, oh, that hurts. And he said, I went along, I walked a few more steps, and then I fell over and barely survived from the most poisonous snake bite, whatever that region had. But when the snake bite first happened, he just thought, oh, I was bit, you know, a bush jagged me with the briar, and he kept walking with his friends. Fast forward a few years later, he's out in the bush again, recovered. A couple years later, he's going along, and he said he did get jagged by a briar, and this time he said he without even thinking about it, like he was wailing on the ground, writhing in pain, screaming, rolling, you know, because his brain said, jagged with the snake bite, now I'm going to die, when it was just a jagger. So our brain, for better or worse, our brain can play all sorts of tricks on us. So that's why it's so important to know this model, that thoughts cause our feelings, cause our behavior. And this is a whole, it's called rational emotive behavior therapy. I don't think that's written down anywhere on any of the slides, but you know, again, my number will be here, or Doug, you can get my information from it. Rational emotive behavior therapy. You can look it up online, you can look up books, and that is the model that when you get that and you buy into that, you will stay mentally strong, because you're the gatekeeper of your mind. You can say, I choose not to think that thought. Sometimes it's a wrestling match. Trust me, I'm not saying it's easy. I've got 2 children with life-threatening illnesses. My son, I know personally what it's like to walk around every day. My son has an inoperable brain tumor on his brainstem, and every day he's got a time bomb in his head. But mentally, he and I both have chosen that we are not going to let that rob us from one more minute than it than it already has. Like that, it knocks you off your feet, you grieve, you adjust, and then you get mentally strong and you say, I'm not letting that beat me. Even in the midst of this, even in the midst of what we're all facing right now, being quarantined to our homes on a stay-at-home order, I'm committed to grabbing some joy in my day. Even when I walk around every day that my son or my daughter, my phone could ring, I always have it with me, it could ring and say, you know, your son's heart stopped beating because this grew 1 millimeter. Even in the midst of that day, I'm grabbing joy with him because I don't know when that could happen. So that we can all do that. And if you look at this, I talked about 2 words that I was going to tell you. Okay, the word should. Should. We all have shoulds for ourselves. We have shoulds for other people, right? He shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do that. That business shouldn't do that. And Albert Ellis, who is the founder of Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, I like his quote. I tell it to my clients all the time. Don't shit all over yourself. And don't shit all over other people. Because the word should is a critical word. And just the word should. I was telling Doug this the other day. There are social scientists study things like this, but they had people read 2 scripts. They were the exact same script, except one script had the word should throughout it, and the other one had, in place of should, I wish, or it would be nice if. So the people didn't know they were doing a psychological study. They thought they were being paid for a focus group. But at the end of reading the script with shoulds all through it, they were measuring heart rate, respiration, and blood pressure. And they measured the stress hormone cortisol and clotting factor. And just from reading that script, all of those things were higher in the people whose script had should in it. So when you're critical of yourself, when you're critical of others, when I say I shouldn't feel this way or I should feel this way, that just remember that word should. Like I told you at the beginning, if there are 2 words that you could eliminate today and you got nothing else out of my talk except you never said these 2 words again, you would improve your life. And I propose that you would live a bit longer. I don't know whether it'd be 6 months longer or 5 years longer. I don't know how much you say should or this other word, but I propose that your health, you would live longer. And all of us at the end want a few more days. So the word should, that's the first one to eliminate from your vocabulary. Okay, we're going to get to the next one. The next word is can't. The next word is can't. When you say, I can't do that. The other day, there was a woman in my office and she said, I can't handle this. I can't handle the coronavirus. I can't handle the way the world is. I can't handle staying home. I can't handle. We talked about this because the week before she had been saying the same thing. And I said, well, you're saying it today, which is an untrue statement because really you said that last week and here you are. And guess what? You are handling it. You might not like it. It might be hard, but to say the sentence, I can't handle it, you've just lied to yourself because you are handling it. By the nature of another week's gone by, you told me you went out and got your mail. You're not scared to do that anymore. You told me that you sewed a mask today. So you are doing things, you are handling it. So when you say the word can't, this is a cement mixer. And I just want you to I want you to always remember that when you say the word can't, the word is cement. Can't is cement. So if you say, I can't do this, guess what? You can't. If you say, I can't bake a cake, I can't learn math, I can't learn Spanish, guess what? You can't. And I know this is just a quick few minutes I'm getting with you, but like, you don't know me, but I do promise you that the power of words, if you put in the time to learning this and you read about this and you look at the studies, if you want to change something, the only way to change it is through the power of words. So I'm giving you 2 tips to take away. Don't tell yourself you can't handle this. Don't tell yourself that you should be doing something different. Somebody else should be doing something. The gatekeeper of your mind. None of us might like this. I'm sure none of us do like this. we have to say rational, true sentences. I might not like what's happening right now, but I can handle this. I can do this. Okay, I like this quote because Muhammad Ali, if you know who he is the greatest boxer, and I like his quote, "I am the greatest," he said. I said that even before I knew I was. Great, right? He started out, "I'm the greatest." What is it? Sting like a butterfly, float like a bee, sting like a bee, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. He said to himself, "I'm the greatest," and he became the greatest. And many people that make it to the top 1% of their fields, all of them, if you go back and listen and study and look at their videos and things they said and wrote, they said a lot of positive things about themselves. If you look at this slide, the placebo effect is scientific proof that we have the ability to heal ourselves. The ability to heal ourselves. I mean, that's what a placebo pill is. They give them to patients and patients get better. Why? They get better because they thought that pill would make them better. It was a sugar pill. They're proof positive. Our thoughts are powerful enough to bring things into existence. Telling yourself, "I'm going to be okay through this, no matter what." If I lost everything, if I lost every penny I had, I mean, I'm telling myself this. If I lost every penny I had, if my house burned down, if all I had was myself and my children, it'd be hard, but I'm darn well gonna, this isn't breaking me. I'm darn well gonna be fighting for it. I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna go scrounge some food, I'm gonna go figure out how I'm gonna make some more money. But it's that our thoughts are powerful enough to bring it into existence. We need to absorb this. Okay, surrendering, instead of trying to control it, this is a powerful time to surrender, because there's none of us controlling this, right? You can't do anything about it, so we surrender. And it's an antidote to the frustration you feel when you try to control something you can't control. We're all in the same boat. In the business world, nobody's getting ahead of us because they're not getting anywhere either. We're all in the same boat. If you look at, this is called corona control, sort of, to think about the things that you can control right now. I use my two hands and I use this with clients to help them remember it. What are the things you can control right now to keep yourself mentally strong, mentally tough? One hand is physical control. Look at that, I've already mentioned a lot of those things. Are you getting enough exercise, enough sleep? Are you drinking water? Are you eating nutritional food? Are you following the CDC guidelines? Are you keeping your doctor's appointments? Whatever it is on that physical side. But all of those, right, if you have to, if it'll help you, get a permanent marker and write that on your hand. Write it on the inside. Not many people will see it. You write it on the inside to remember that. If we look at the other side, is the mental control. What can we control? Meditation, that finger that says meditate, things like meditation. There are plenty of tapes, tons of free stuff on the internet right now. If you're having trouble sleeping, go click a free meditation, a guided imagery, a progressive muscle relaxation, breathing exercises, all of those under there. There's tons of free stuff out there right now, and I promise you it helps. The second finger, relationships. Right now, maybe we can't physically see somebody. Are we connecting virtually? You know, I met with every Saturday now, my girlfriends and I, we have coffee over, we all show up with their cups of coffee and we're on the screen. Some women in town are driving up to the Giant Eagle grocery store before they get their groceries, and they're sitting 6 feet apart in their cars and bring their coffee and sit and talk. So making sure you're staying connected to people and not isolating. If you live alone and you don't know a soul, then make the virtual world your family. Make connecting to listening to good podcasts, listening to good TED Talks. There are ways to connect to not feel isolated. The next finger, your passions. Like, okay, are you doing something that you enjoy? This is where I said about grabbing that moment in the day for pursuing a passion. Do you like to draw? Do you like to write? Do you like to read? Are you going to paint your bedroom? Are you going to go build a new project out in the garage? The next finger is the spiritual side of this. And that doesn't have to mean religion. Spirituality is a different sort of thing, but are you connecting, and are you feeling grounded and centered and finding your purpose and meaning and connecting with that part of you. And then the thumb, mind growth, and the little sentence there, present moment living. So mind growth is something like what I talked about today, learning how to control your thoughts, reading books on how to be the gatekeeper of your mind. There's a million books out there. I've got a lot of good resources and recommendations. You can contact me. I'll give you recommendations for good reading. But getting your mind focused on present moment living. All any of us have is this moment. Right now, meteor could hit it before we finish this webinar, and then we wasted all that anxiety about coronavirus getting us, or I wasted anxiety about my son's brain tumor. I refuse to do that. I'm not gonna let that thought rob me of what I have right here. And the way I do that is that present moment living. When my mind starts to have sentences that produce worry, because worry about the past, can't do anything about it. Worry about the future, can't do anything about it. When my thoughts start to go there, I'm the gatekeeper of my mind, and I have tools to change that thinking. Okay, I know we're almost done. I know we're running up, but I've got 3 more slides, so we're going to go through those really quickly. So those 2 hands for what you can control, and these are just some other things. Some of them are sort of repetitive, redundant, but these are just things to think about, ways to nurture your spirit. Some of those we've already touched about. Good music, putting on music when maybe you used to listen to music while you cooked and you forgot what it's like to put on your favorite song and dance around the kitchen. One of those that we haven't touched on, kindness to self, being kind to yourself, not running critical sentences and shoulds through your head. Kindness to others, that we see people doing that now and trying to help where you can. All of these things are we've touched on meditation and yoga, and I always use this one because sleep is so important, and especially now if we're home all the time and you're sleeping and getting good rest, the best pillows, sheets, and bedding you can afford. Because you know when you go to the hotel and they're really good sheets, and then you're like, oh, I got these scratchy sheets at home. It's one of the best investments you'll make is to have your bed be as comfy as your favorite hotel bed. Spiritual practice, letting go of what you can't control. Forgiveness, it's a good time to work on that because not forgiving is a negative emotion. And being gentle, just being gentle with ourselves. Aren't you doing the best you can? Like, I mean, really, aren't you? I mean, I'm doing the best I can. Does that mean we don't make a mistake? But being kind and gentle to yourself when you do. We're not perfect beings. We're all handling this the best we can. And being kind to yourself when you make a choice that you don't really think is the best choice, being kind, and then guess what? Getting on with that next second new clean slate you got to either make the apology or choose the right food or go get some water, whatever it is with that next clean slate. And here's the big word. Here's a word. This word is I have this on the hallway, like the Philadelphia Eagles where I work. This word is on the hallway that all the players walk down when they go to the weight room, because it's ownership. The second you take 100% complete and total ownership for everything, every single thing in your life is when your life begins to change. Because what that means is if I'm taking ownership, it means I'm not blaming somebody. Because you know what? Even if somebody's doing something, if they're doing something that's clearly wrong, if I'm still showing up and letting them do it, then the only way that changes is if I take ownership to not show up there again. So think about ownership. Think about owning every sentence that you let go through your mind, and think about that the only way we change is when we begin to change our thoughts. And I'm just wrapping up because I love this quote because it wraps up with what we started with, the installation of hope. Hope is a projection of the imagination. And you know what? So is despair. Unfortunately, too often I use my imagination to wander down dark, tangled paths of despair rather than explore sunny mountain hills of hope. So let's all click off here and take our next clean slate and let's use our mind to explore hope. And I'm going to stay on here for questions. And if you have to click off, but you have questions, my contact information, that's my cell phone number, that's my email. I'd be happy to help you in any way that I could. So I'm going to defer to Michael and Doug now to see if there's a way that I need to click something to see the questions, or if you guys will tell me.
Yeah, we can. So if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat or the Q&A. I'll just start with one, maybe just to kick things off. So if you just had one piece of advice, let's say, for those that are maybe really stressing about, the economy right now or their business, like one piece of advice, what would you tell them?
Well, I think, Michael, it would come back to like stress. If you are stressed, stress is an emotion you can control. Like yesterday, I had 9 clients yesterday. It was very, very intense. A lot of intense clients that 2 that had to be hospitalized. It was a very intense day, and I could feel my stress levels starting to go up. And so what I would do throughout the day is I would stop, I would take deep breaths. I would tell myself, Sherry, okay, right now I got 15 balls in the air. I'm starting to feel stressed out. Sherry, control the next right thing in front of you that you can do the next thing. Okay, I've got to call this hospital, do that. Sometimes at home, if you're feeling real stressed, and you're looking around, sometimes the next right thing is just doing those dirty dishes in the sink. But that gets you to change the state of standing there being stressed or running stuff through your mind. Doing the next right thing, taking deep breaths, is sort of, if I have to give a quick tip, do the next right thing in front of you that you can control. Because usually if you're stressed and worried, you're worried about a million things that you can't control immediately. So the tip would be look around at what is, and sometimes, like I said, it might be washing that dish, or it might be petting the cat, or it might be feeding the kid. That's all you can control right now. Focus on that.
Dr. Sherry, as a coach and any business owners, when they make the emotional decision to change, okay, and they're saying, something, I'm not going to let this virus get me down currently, so I'm going to think of the end of the curve and what my business is going to look like, and I'm going to be stronger, okay, than I went in on this, and make that decision. How important it is it then to put that into writing with a plan? Does that very important in this process as a tool?
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Certainly all of the things that you can be doing right now, like the title of this, Installation of Hope, we are all hoping that on the other side of this, we're going to come out stronger. I had a training practice where I had many trainings set up that were live trainings that were all canceled. That business was growing and booming. Do I wonder if that business is going to come back? That thought's gone through my head, but I'm preparing for how I'm going to make sure that business comes back. I've got my plan for what I'm going to do, and whether you write that down, whether you continue your networking, all the things you can do virtually. But absolutely, the planning and preparation, absolutely, Doug. Having them write down a plan, have them keep that momentum going, not just throwing up our hands going, I don't know where this is going to go. Where am I going to make this go? Where am I going to take control and make this go?
And tips for eliminating should and can't. I mean, when you say it, I mean,
when it comes out of your mouth, bite it off in mid-sentence. I mean, it really does work. I love, one of my favorite things is when I watch my clients who are starting to learn it, and they will come in and they will catch themselves. Like they'll sit down and they'll say, oh, I shouldn't have, and they'll go, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to say that, am I? I'm not supposed to say should. Stop if you do say it, like this is a good experiment for you. This is a good idea to see, start to be aware, how many times do you say it? And a good way to catch that is once you notice you've said should or can't, make yourself repeat the sentence in a different way.
So
go ahead.
So since we're all in close quarters with each other, it's pretty easy. So
Right.
you can have an accountability partner at home pretty easy now, right? It says,
Right.
hey, you just said should, you just said can't.
Right. Yeah, I do have, because I have some, I have families that I've done family therapy with, and they will catch each other. Yeah, Mom, you're shooting all over yourself. The little kids love to say that because they think they're getting away with something. You're shooting all over yourself, because that's what should does. It really does. So.
Awesome. Well, it's just a little bit past 4 now, so
Okay.
thank you very much, Dr. Kane,
You're
for taking your
welcome.
time on the East Coast. I know it's already maybe past dinner time for you.
Yep.
But
Dinner
thank,
time.
thank you very much again, and to our participants, thank you all for participating. We are looking to have another webinar possibly next week or later, probably again about the Paycheck Protection Program as people are getting their experiences on that. We're hoping to maybe get a lender in just to see what their perspectives are. So thank you again to you, and thank you to Doug as well. Yeah, if you have any questions, or email or phone number still up there. So
Yep. I would be glad to field any questions after this that you think about later, or if anything comes up, it can be a month from now. Keep my contact information. I'd be happy to talk with any of you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sherry. Thanks everybody for attending.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.